This episode of Sideline Warning is brought to you by Roosport, makers of the original magnetic running pouch. Whether you're biking, running, hiking, or even traveling, the Roosport clips to your waistband with magnets for an easy, convenient way to carry what you need without the bulk of belts or bags. Visit theroosport.com and use the code SIDELINE30, all lowercase, for 30% off their entire product line. Again, that's theroosport.com, promo code SIDELINE30. And now on with the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sideline Warning, the show where sports takes are sure to go way too far into the field. Here to recap this week's biggest and best sports stories are your hosts, Dave Adams, Ben Foster, and Adam Russell.
And welcome to Sideline Warning, everybody. As always, you've got the golden voice of the Southeast, the one, the only, Dave Adams, coming to you live and in living color, all the way from Harvest, Alabama, the top of the state of Alabama, because I am on top of everything in the world of sports. And unfortunately, this has not been a good week of sports for the state of Alabama if you are a Crimson Tide fan or a Birmingham Iron fan. But as always, I've at least brought along one of my friends all the way from Birmingham, Alabama, Hollywood Ben Foster. What's going
Dave.
on, Ben?
Oh,
hey, Ben.
I'm doing well. I'm just thinking about places where you could take me to get a steak. I think I won a steak bet.
You did win a steak bet, and we'll talk about that. We can talk about that offline.
Did anyone else on the show win a steak bet?
Adam won a steak bet as well, so I'm 0 for 2.
So you're 0 for 2 in steak bets, and Adam and I each have winning records in steak bets.
Yes, that is correct.
Well,
and
how about we throw another shrimp on the Barbie and go to Outback?
I mean, Outback's okay, but it's not my favorite steak.
Well, it's not my favorite steak either. I'm not going to take you to like Perry's, which I love. I love Perry's Steakhouse. I'm not going to take
Perry's.
you there.
I've never heard of Perry's.
Oh, well, you need to know about Perry's.
No, you need to know about Connor's.
Connor's
is the best steak here in Huntsville.
Okay.
You need to know Connor's.
Well,
okay.
I'm not saying Perry's is the best steak. I'm just saying it's one of my favorite places. One of my favorite.
I mean, there's always Shula's.
Is there?
Good point. Well, unfortunately, and I did say I have not brought along all of my friends. Adam is under the weather. So if you get the chance and if you feel so inclined, pray for Adam and his family. They all have the flu. And I don't think you want to talk sports when you have the flu, even though Adam's Orlando Apollos did take care of business against the Birmingham Iron this weekend. Ben, you were at the game. Tell me your impressions.
My impressions were that the Birmingham Iron are a very solid team. We've maintained that for the whole season, but they weren't ready to match up with Orlando. They were outclassed by Orlando just in how they played. Orlando is by far the most complete team in the Alliance of American Football, and record-wise, Birmingham came into that game with the second best record in the league, and at this point, it certainly seems like the league is Orlando's for the taking, barring massive injuries, barring some sort of just absolute collapse. This team has been consistent and been consistently good, and they've done that on both sides of the ball. They're the most complete team in the Alliance.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. You say that Birmingham looks good, and you thought they looked good in this game. But I'll be honest with you, Ben. Every other team in the Alliance looks like they're either getting better or maybe doing that small upward trajectory that, as you like to say. Everything I've seen from Birmingham is a downward trajectory. It looks like Birmingham peaked in week 1 and has just been getting slowly worse every week. In fact, Luis Perez has had to be set in this game and to bring in Price as the quarterback. I don't think Birmingham is getting any better, and I can't really put my finger on it. Is injuries that big of a deal for Birmingham?
Well, I think injuries certainly play a big role, but the offense has been very lackluster, and some of that's due to injuries, and some of that's just due to overall performance. We talked at the beginning of the season about how Luis Perez looked like a guy that was ready for the NFL and could get back to being a backup quarterback in the NFL, and that's not what we've seen in the last few games. Keith Price coming in actually seemed to give a spark to this offense. Before, I was willing to say that a lot of the issues were offensive line related, but this was an offense that could actually move the ball once they got Keith Price involved, and some of that has to do with him being a mobile quarterback, but that can accommodate problems that you may have on the offensive line. But it looks like Keith Price just took over this team, which is a big thing because Luis Perez is actually a captain.
Yeah, and I think he's going to be a captain on the bench. I don't know if any official word has come out yet, but I think Keith Price should be the starter next week when you see Birmingham play next. The other thing I want to talk about is Trent Richardson. He had a touchdown, but he only rushed for 21 yards. Can Trent Richardson be the team leader that he's supposed to be, only averaging 2.6 yards in a big game when Birmingham really needed him to have a good game?
Well, touchdowns do a lot of talking, and that matters. Putting points on the board matters. And so if Trent Richardson is able to be that guy in short yardage in the red zone, if he's only useful in the red zone offense, he can still be a leader for this team. That doesn't undermine his leadership if he's the guy that's putting points on the board. I think now what you've got to see, though, is you've got to see Price take this team and get it down the field so there's opportunities for Richardson to get more touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that if you have two guys in the backfield that can run, both Price and Richardson, I think it might open some holes up for Richardson. But, I mean, kind of the Blake Sims, Derrick Henry type thing. But I don't know. I think that the best years of Trent Richardson's career are way behind him, and I think we're just seeing the twilight of his career right here. I honestly think this is probably going to be his last season because he's not the running back that everyone expected him to be in the Birmingham Iron. And to me, yes, he's great at the goal line, but he's not the Trent that we saw in Crimson. He's not even the Trent that we saw at the Cleveland Browns. I'm not.
Okay, well
really...
what are your expectations? How old's Trent Richardson now? He's 31? Is that what it is?
Is he? I thought he was still late 20s.
No, I think he's right around 30. This is when any pro running back is going to taper off. I don't
really ask Frank Gore.
Look,
he just signed a 2-year contract.
Yeah, I get it. And how many other Frank Gores are there? Frank Gore is the exception, not the rule. Adrian Peterson has fresh legs because he hasn't played half his career.
That's true.
Trent Richardson's 28. At this point, guys have had a lot of wear and tear. So I thought he was a little older, but he's 28 and he's about to be 29. This is where guys who have sacrificed their bodies on the football field start to taper off a little bit. And I don't think you should fault Trent Richardson. He's shown he's a value creator. He's leading the league in touchdowns. And I think that if your only measure of whether or not a running back's good is how many yards per play they're making, that's a statistic. That matters, but it's not the only statistic. And the touchdowns matter. Trent Richardson's putting points on the board. So to say that he's in the twilight of his career, I get it. He's not 21, but we shouldn't expect him to be. No running back at 28 runs like they are at 21, except for the generational changing quarterbacks. And
I was going to say, do you want me to bring some names up? Because I can't.
No, look, yeah, okay, great. Well, guess what? He's not Emmitt Smith. He's not that. I get that. But you're looking at exceptions to that rather than the rule. If he was that, he wouldn't be in the AAF.
That's very true.
He's by at least one statistical measure, he's the best running back in the AAF. And for a guy that hasn't played professional football in how many years?
2, 3.
Hasn't played. He played in the Canadian Football League. He played in the CFL in 2017. In 2015 and 2016, he was on the practice squads for the Raiders and the Ravens. He has not played NFL caliber football since 2014. We're talking 5 years.
Yeah.
That should manage your expectations. We shouldn't expect him to be an NFL running back. We should expect him to be one of the best AAF running backs. And statistically, you can make that case.
Okay, you can say, yes, one category he is leading in statistically. But I'm looking, you got Zach Stacy, who was great in the NFL. He is now one of the leaders on Memphis. You've got all these good running backs. And Trent is just a good touchdown gobbler. I mean, honestly,
So,
now that
points
now
matter. That's Alabama would. I mean, not Alabama. That's how excited I am.
You're doing it again.
Iron,
You're doing it again.
The Iron would not have won some of the games they've had if it wasn't for Trent Richardson punching things into the end zone. This is an offense that hasn't been able to accomplish a ton, and he's been the feature of the offense. He's certainly been one of the faces of this team, which from a marketing standpoint is exactly what you'd hope with a Birmingham squad. But
true.
But Birmingham's what's Birmingham's record at this point? They're 3-2.
Yeah, 3-2.
They wouldn't be 3-2 without Trent Richardson. They'd be 2-3.
Okay.
At the least, if not 1-4. Trent Richardson has had an impact on this team, and it's resulted in wins.
It has. Now let's move away from just the game in general. This has been your second AAF game to go to, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask your opinion on the league. I know there was some bad weather in Birmingham, but you sent me pictures and you posted pictures on Instagram where the crowd was basically not there. There's been what, 3 home games in Birmingham now?
There's actually been 4 home games.
Okay, there's been 4 home games, and they haven't had a good crowd at any of the 4 games. I'd say the first game was, 20,000 maybe, and the old gray lady holds 60. So it looks very empty. Does the AAF, now that we're halfway through the season, does the AAF have staying power?
Yes, absolutely. Because the AAF is not designed to be a stadium-filling league. The AAF is designed to be a TV-oriented league, and as guests on the show have pointed out, it's also kind of in the long run intended to be a gambling-friendly league. I say that with a hushed voice, but the Alliance is making money off of TV, and the Alliance is currently making money off of the investors that have infused money in it to sustain it beyond one season. So they're not trying to make money off of ticket revenue. If they do make money off of ticket revenue, that's a bonus. That's gravy. But the league could have an empty stadium and still be viable because they're designed to make their money off the TV contracts.
Now, have you asked anybody, or have we seen anything that says, is this more than a 1-year deal with the TV contracts?
Well, I believe the goal is to keep putting this on TV, and especially I haven't seen too much of the ratings after the first week, but the ratings were pretty good for the first week. They were a big story. So I think the Alliance is trying to be TV friendly. I think there is a market in the United States to always put football on TV year round. And so I definitely think there's value in this. And that's why TNT is covering games. Obviously you can put stuff on the NFL network. They always need content. But to have TNT pick it up, to have CBS Sports Network pick it up, I think there's people that are watching. And I think they're making money off of that ad revenue.
Yeah. I will say this. I noticed it big time when I was watching this Birmingham game because, normally you get crowd shots and you get shots of people talking in the crowd, people hanging out, having fun. It seemed to me like the producers went out of their way to avoid showing the crowd because it was spotty at Legion Field. And I don't know, that to me, that just takes away from the viewing, I think.
I think it does to an extent, and I actually had the thought, it's not going to work for the Alliance now, but somebody should try to create a league that doesn't have geographic orientation. They should have a league that takes place in like a football studio, like a giant soundstage, and all the teams play there.
Yeah, that could work.
If you're trying to showcase talent, why does the geography matter?
Yeah, that's true. But you have to show. You can't do all the games indoors because you have to have some outdoors, some element.
Why do you have to play football outside?
Because that's football, man.
There's Arena League football, but why not put it on a soundstage? Or why not have a stadium in Southern California that is just the dead where all the TV production is? Why not have Southern California, some random stadium there, selected to be your televised league stadium? And you just have teams and just give them names, and it doesn't matter. They don't have to have a city name, because they're just showcasing talent. And then you have all of the players for 8 teams all in one city, and you just build like a giant dormitory in and around this one television stadium. And you don't worry about the fans.
I guess that could work, but
people want to watch TV. That's what happens.
I like going to live sports, though, man.
I get it. I do too. But I'm just saying, I really think there's a potential to make a TV friendly product where a sport, it may not even be football, but I think at some point in the next 10 years, we're going to see a sport attempt to create an arena that is not crowd dependent, and have an arena that is very, very TV friendly. With, football's gotten better on TV because there's more cameras. And I think you could see a stadium that is equipped with even more cameras and even more camera angles. So you could see things from perspectives you've never even thought about seeing a football game, or maybe a baseball game, or maybe a basketball game. You see them from an entirely new perspective. I think we'll see that in the next 10, 20 years. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the AAF.
Yeah, we are.
And the larger point here is I don't think the league is that dependent on crowds. And from my perspective, the photos I posted on social media, I'm looking at the visiting bench side of the stadium. So those are not season ticket holders. Those are just people that have walked up and bought tickets. And those are also people who just like a lot of elbow room. So a lot of the photos I posted on social media are not showing where the crowd was denser, which was the area beneath the press box. That's where your season ticket holders are. That's where your loud vocal cheering sections of Iron fans are. Now, that's not to say everybody's shoulder to shoulder on that side of the stadium, but the crowd was better on that side in the area below me.
Okay, well, so that the fact that you say that kind of makes me feel a little bit better, because it really looked like it was nobody there.
But 13,000 people in a stadium of 60,000, or even their best attendance, let's call it 20,000, in a stadium of 60,000, is always going to look sparse.
Yeah.
And in Legion Field, they've got the end zones covered. So that's the way they do it for UAB games. That's the way they do it for the Iron games. They have recently opened one little section in one end zone, so there can be an end zone cheering section for the Iron.
Oh, gosh.
But you're not going to have 60,000 people show up for these games. 60,000 is what shows up for college football games and NFL games, and the Alliance just isn't going to be able to draw that.
No.
Now the Birmingham Iron team, presuming the AAF hangs around another couple of years, will play in the new Birmingham Stadium that's going to be built in downtown Birmingham, east of where Legion Field is. They're planning to break ground here in a few months. That actually was some news today. They're planning to break ground kind of this summer, or late spring into the summer. So presumably, if the Alliance hangs around another season or two, I think you'll see a boost in Iron attendance, because these fans will be in that new arena, and I think that will be a better draw. I don't want to hate on Legion Field. It's a historic facility, but new stadiums draw better crowds. People want amenities. Yeah. People want stuff that's clean and not weathered. People want, I hate to say it, people want neighborhoods where they feel safe. And I think the area around Legion Field is safe, but I think there's a lot of people that attach a stigma to that part of Birmingham. And that's, I think
it's not a good neighborhood.
I think generally that's kind of unfair. It's not, it's not the suburbs, but it's also a neighborhood where people live and work, and where Birmingham residents live. People live there around the stadium, and I think that area gets a bad rap that's unfair on a few different fronts. But I think when the stadium is downtown and it's a new facility, it'll seat fewer people than Legion Field will. I think it'll be easier for a crowd to get in there. and make a stronger presence for the Iron. So I think that's what's on the horizon if the alliance is able to sustain itself, which right now with the infusions of cash they're getting and the TV contracts they've got, I think is definitely a possibility.
Yeah, it could be a possibility, but I don't see how. I mean, there's got to be a point in time when this money runs out and dries up. I know you say they've got all these contracts, these cash inflow, this $250 million investor from the NHL, but there's got to be a point in time where you have to start selling tickets and you have to have more income coming in to pay rent to Birmingham, to pay rent to Atlanta. You've got to do all these things. The fans have to have some interest, or you're going to have to move the team.
You don't have to sell tickets unless selling tickets is part of your business model. And I think the Alliance is trying to build a league that doesn't depend on ticket sales.
Okay. Well,
you want to sell tickets, you want to have crowds showing up, but I think they're trying to build a league that's independent of that. We'll see how it works. We don't know.
We'll see how it works. Before let's just go ahead and say we're going to agree to disagree. I was really excited about the AAF, but seeing how it's kind of been lackluster to me. The games haven't been that exciting. Now there were a couple of exciting games this week, but it's been kind of lackluster to me. So let's move on to something that we know is established. We haven't touched on Alabama football in 4 or 5 weeks, just because there hasn't been anything to talk about. But now that the NFL new season has officially started, the fiscal year has started on March 1st, I believe it was. We're starting to see a lot of free agents signed to new teams. And there's always been a stigma that Alabama players don't play very well when they leave the University of Alabama.
I think you've made that argument on the show, Dave. I
have. I want to present 2 points to disagree with that argument. Point number one.
I love it when you disagree with yourself.
I know, it happens all the time, doesn't it?
It's all those multiple personalities.
I have 3 or 4 of them. But point number one, he just signed with the Washington Crimson Tide because now the starting safeties for both sides are Alabama players. You got Clinton Dix on one side, and his battery mate from the University of Alabama, Landon Collins, has now signed the highest NFL contract for safeties. Is this something that you see is a good deal for Washington, a good deal for Landon, or what do you see here? If you're wondering the specifics, 6 years, $84 million with $45 million guaranteed.
Sounds like a great deal for Landon Collins.
It's a great deal for Landon Collins, but is it a great deal for his playing career?
Going to the Washington Redskins?
The Washington Crimson Tide.
I mean, why would it not be? They're getting the band back together.
Yeah. Basically, it's the 2000, That's the 2015 defense they're getting back together. Landon Collins, Clinton Dix, Sean Dion. Yes, Sean Dion was there. Jonathan Allen was there. That is the 2015 defense.
It's a lot of guys that are familiar with each other.
Yeah, and I think they have, if I remember correctly, I think Robert Foster's on the team as well on offense.
I think so. And am I making this up? Cam Sims?
It might be Cam instead of Robert Foster.
I remember maybe they both are. I saw a tweet. I saw a tweet where someone said the Washington Redskins now have more Alabama players than there are Alabama representatives in Congress.
That's crazy.
They were saying the congressional delegation. So that's the Alabama has 7 congressmen and women and 2 senators. So that's 9. I actually think there are more than 9 Alabama players on the Redskins roster now.
And if you lest you forget, they also have a man on the unable to play list. Reuben Foster was picked up by the Redskins as well.
Yeah, that's what we just said. We said Reuben, right?
I don't think.
We said Robert Foster. Yeah. So
Reuben's on the list.
They have both of my cousins. Is that what it is?
Yeah, both of your cousins from another mother side of the family. Anyway, but so just the day after that, Everyone says that Alabama linebackers fail when they come to the NFL. Well, why don't you tell the New York Jets that? Because they signed C.J. Mosley to a 5-year, $85 million deal with $51 million of that guaranteed. That is the biggest contract for an inside linebacker. So, Ben, is the University of Alabama football players, are they played out when they get to the NFL?
I'm starting to think that Alabama's good at football.
I'm starting to think that as well. So they've signed 2 contracts. CJ, I feel good for him because he's getting a lot of money, but now he has to go play for the Jets.
That is rough.
That is rough. So the Saints signed another running back, so that means that Mark Ingram was left out in the cold. Well, just as soon as the Saints sign another running back, guess where Mark Ingram gets to go? Baltimore. Even though OJ has retired, or Ozzie Newsome has retired, he's no longer the GM. They're still picking up Alabama players. Mark signed a 3-year, $15 million deal for the Baltimore Ravens. I'll be honest, even though I'm a Titans fan, I kind of want a black and purple Mark Ingram 22 jersey. Because that's going to be awesome looking.
It could be all right.
Yeah. The Falcons signed James Carpenter, 4 years, $21 million. And the one that
do the Falcons have any other Alabama players?
They might have 2 wide receivers. You might have heard of them.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that shocks me is the guy that was a failure at the University of Alabama was also a first-round draft pick by the Houston Texans. Kareem Jackson signed a 3-year deal in Denver worth $33 million, with $23 million of that guaranteed. That's crazy money for a man that was not good in college.
Doesn't this just improve recruiting?
It should. But if I'm Alabama, every letter I send out to my recruits say or if I'm sending out to an inside linebacker, check out what we just did in the NFL. If I'm sending out to a safety, check out what we just did in the NFL. I mean, it's not like Alabama needs help recruiting, but look what we just did.
If you're someone that goes to games in Bryant-Denny Stadium, which you and I both are, and
Yes.
which I figure a good number of our listeners are, not all of them, Alabama regularly does a segment during the games in Bryant-Denny Stadium where they give you an update on Alabama players in the NFL. And they show highlights, and the guys they highlight are the ones that had the best games. So if Calvin Ridley has a great week, they spend a lot of time talking about Calvin Ridley. And I find myself going into Bryant-Denny Stadium thinking I can guess who's going to be in the video as they feature 3, 4, 5 players. And what's happening is there are guys that have great weeks, and I think they're going to be in the video, and they don't make the cut because there's so many other guys that have overachieved above them.
Well, so here's my theory on that. I think they use that video to their advantage of the people of the recruits on the sideline.
Oh, of course, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's not a theory. That's exactly why they do it. One, it pumps up the fans. The fans like it. But it's definitely there for the recruits. And when they bring a recruit into the stadium, they show them that. That's what's going on. There's no doubt about that. But I'm sitting there thinking, I know this player. I know Landon Collins is going to be in the video this week. And they don't show him in the video because they're showing 5 other guys that have overachieved what he did.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how good and how broad Alabama's base is in the NFL now.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, and I used to do this all the time when I played Madden, but theoretically now, I think you could go in and make your own Alabama Crimson Tide team. I don't think there are many positions in the NFL now where Alabama doesn't have a player playing.
Alabama's everywhere, and there's several guys that are about to be in the NFL given another month.
Yeah, Quentin Williams will probably be one of the first 3 or 4 picked. Jonah Williams will be there. I think Alabama's slated
how many of these guys are the Redskins going to draft? The Redskins are going to trade up and down until they get just Alabama players, right?
I mean, why not? It seems like somebody has done some talking and done their homework.
Here's what I think is going to happen, Dave.
Okay.
indulge me on a conspiracy theory.
Uh-oh.
I think next year there's going to be a really good quarterback with a good arm that's going to be draftable.
I think you're right.
And I think, at that point there's going to be a lot of people that are saying, hey, the dynasty's dead in Tuscaloosa. And,
there will be another quarterback with another really good arm coming up right behind him.
There will be, but has an SEC coach who's won a national championship ever gone to the Redskins to coach?
Yes.
I think the Redskins are making a play for Saban. They're going to draft all of his guys and let Saban's swan song not be in Tuscaloosa, but Saban's going to go out by giving 4 or 5 years to the Redskins and winning an NFL championship with all Alabama players.
No, it's not a possibility. Miss Terry loves college football. She loves Tuscaloosa. I do not see Nick Saban going anywhere except ending his career at the University of Alabama or somewhere. I'm not going to say that he's going to finish at Alabama. I just don't see it's a possibility.
Look, in all honesty, I think he's going to finish at Alabama too, but I think at some point you are going to hear the hype machine push that kind of narrative. And they're going to claim that it was a conspiracy theory. Like, I'm joking around with it. I think you're going to see somebody in Washington or elsewhere float the idea of Saban coming to coach the Redskins.
I mean, they're going to try.
They're going to point to Miami, and they're going to say the reason why Saban left Miami was he didn't have control over getting the players he wanted. And they're going to say now he's got the players he wanted because it's the players he's always wanted.
What are they going to do? Make a trade for Amari? Make a trade for Julio?
You never know.
Yeah, you do. Atlanta's not letting them go. Never.
You never know. The perfect way to end Saban's career could also be the perfect way to end Julio's career. Everybody getting together in Washington.
Wow, are you going to make me root for Washington if that happens? Because I would.
Hey, I like Washington. I like the Redskins. They're not my favorite. They're not my favorite team, but I like them. I don't have anything against them.
I've never liked Washington, but anyway. On to the next topic. Let's go ahead and look. We say it every week. We say how great we love our Roo Sport. We give you the website to go to, www.theroosport.com, and you get to choose any of the products they've got out there. They're even giving you a code, 30% off, Sideline 30. Sideline 30, spelled the word sideline, the number 30. It is great for anybody who runs, anybody who goes out there and goes to concerts and festivals like Ben does, anybody who's training puppies like I am, like Ben is. You put it in your Roo Sport. You don't have a big belt. You don't have a big bag bulging everywhere. You have just your Roo Sport there on your pants. Ben, what do you use yours for?
Well, the Roo Sport's got a ton of different possibilities. To me, there's so many times where I don't want to have like everything flying everywhere, cash and stuff like that. It is perfect for getting like your ID and your credit card and some cash and putting it in there. But you can use it for a ton of things. We've talked about using it for puppy class, putting dog treats in there. I wouldn't recommend necessarily using the same Roo Sport for puppy treats and for your credit card. That can get a little messy. So that's why you need two. But there's a ton of uses for the Roo Sport. Anytime you don't want stuff banging around in your pockets, I'm always scared when I'm running, when I'm walking, sometimes when I'm wearing gym shorts or something like that. It's really easy for my wallet to slide out of my pants pocket.
Yep.
So when I'm doing something like that, I don't want to lose stuff. You also don't want to be, hanging out with friends somewhere and you leave your keys behind. You can't get anywhere without your keys. You don't want to leave your wallet behind. You don't want stuff falling out of your pockets. You want stuff to stay with you. That's when you need the Roo Sport. You think about it. You're riding a bicycle.
Roo Sport.
It's impossible to keep stuff on you when you're riding a bicycle. So whatever you're doing, if you're being active, if you're out and about doing things and you don't want that bulk there, I always keep things front pocket, but it's not good for your back to sit on things and having things in your back pocket. The Roo Sport's there to keep things right there on your hip.
Yeah.
A fanny pack, if you're moving around, a fanny pack is just banging around. It's making
And first
noise,
off,
it's shaking stuff, and either hitting your hip, or it's hitting your back, or it's hitting your front side, which is not good at all. You don't want the fanny pack doing all that stuff. The Roo Sport keeps things tight to your hip, and it keeps things from moving around. It keeps everything right there where you need it.
and it doesn't look like you're in the 1980s with a fanny pack. Who wants to wear a fanny pack anymore? Really? I mean,
It's not the fashion statement you're going for, Dave.
no, this is not the droid you're looking for. This is not the thing that you're wanting to wear. It's the Roo Sport. Go to www.theroosport.com. Use that promo code Sideline30 at checkout. Get 30% off of everything you order. You'll love it like we do, I promise. Something else, and I hate making this segue. We love Alabama athletics on this podcast, but we love when Alabama athletics excel. And Ben, I said it at the beginning of the show. This has not been the best 10 days for Alabama athletics when it comes to basketball.
No, it really hasn't been the last good 6 weeks.
Yeah, I'd say 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Yeah, you're probably about right. But I mean, look at it this way: Alabama was beating LSU. We lost. Alabama was dominating Auburn. We lost. I can't even say doing anything against Arkansas because we looked like garbage all the time against Arkansas. So, A, has this team quit? And B, I guess my only thing is, has this team quit? Because it sure doesn't seem like there's any fight left in this team.
I don't think this team has quit. I just think this team is having a lot of problems down the stretch, and they're having a lot of problems in games where they need to get wins. They haven't quit. They as recently as just a couple weeks ago, they didn't fall apart in the second half, and they fought back and regained the lead against South Carolina. That team's still there. If they quit, they would have come out flat in the first half versus LSU and Auburn. But they didn't. They had great first halves in those games. So this isn't a team that's quit. This is just a team that doesn't have a lot of confidence right now.
So what has to happen? We're recording this on a Wednesday night, the night before Alabama plays Ole Miss in the SEC Championship. Does Alabama have a prayer in hell to beat Ole Miss?
Well, I think where Alabama fans should take comfort is that in the two games Alabama could potentially play on Thursday and Friday, they're against teams that Alabama's beaten. Now, granted, Alabama's not playing like they did in January against Ole Miss and Kentucky, and Ole Miss and Kentucky seem to both be playing much better than they were in January when Alabama beat them. But Ole Miss is not perfect. Ole Miss is beatable. They've had times where they've struggled. They finished the season 1-3 because they had losses to Tennessee and Kentucky, which are completely understandable, two of the three best teams in the league, and then a loss to an Arkansas team where they lost by 1 point. Ole Miss has tightened things up, and they are playing better basketball than they were when Bama beat them on January 22nd. But this is an Ole Miss team that is still beatable. I think Alabama was very fired up in that game. Everybody knows about the pregame altercation that got a lot of guys fired up. If Alabama comes in there with a fire in their belly like they did before, I think they can do a lot to disrupt Ole Miss. Ole Miss has great guard play, but Alabama also was able to put some good size in there to match up with some of those guards. If Alabama plays their better defense that they're capable of playing, they can be disruptive and disrupt some of that guard play for Ole Miss. And if they're able to discombobulate them, I think they've got a chance. I think it is going to be much harder if Alabama can get that win against Ole Miss. I think it is going to be very difficult for Alabama to be able to pull off an upset of Kentucky again.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
It's hard to beat any team twice in one season. It's extraordinarily hard to beat Kentucky twice in one season. I don't know the last time Alabama's beaten Kentucky twice in a season. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's happened. We need to double check that. But Alabama is in a situation where to make the tournament, one win might buy them the benefit of the doubt, but they really need 2 wins, and it's hard to see this team getting 2 wins.
You say that one win might do them the benefit of the doubt. Just looking at this, Lunardi has them not as the first 4 out. They are now the next 4 out. What hurt Alabama, and I said this to you last night, you probably said this isn't the same, but it's not 1-to-1, but it did hurt Alabama, is Gonzaga did not win their conference. So that automatic bid goes to Mount St. Mary's or St. Helens or whatever small potatoes college won that. So now Gonzaga has that at-large bid. Alabama needed another at-large bid to be available. So now I think Alabama has to hope for chalk to win every tournament in order for Alabama to get in. I think there needs to be a lot of luck on Alabama's side to get even talked about in the tournament.
No, I completely agree. The Gonzaga loss definitely hurts. So all you Bama fans that had been pulling for Gonzaga need to think about pulling your secondary fandom from Gonzaga, at least for one season. Alabama's in a really tight spot, and they need some breaks. They need Ole Miss to come out flat. They need to have their best shots falling. Bama needs to have their best shots falling in this game, and quite honestly, they need Kentucky to just come out flat because they don't care. We need Kentucky to be sitting there saying, "We've got a 1 or a 2 seed shored up. We're just not going to put out the effort. We're going to stay healthy.
That won't happen though because
big tournament."
Big Blue Nation will be in Nashville. They're probably already in Nashville.
They certainly are. Big Blue Nation is there. They've taken over Bridgestone Arena because that's what they always do. So it will be like playing a game at Rupp Arena South, and it's just it seems like everything is stacked against Alabama right now. But that's how you write a good Cinderella story, right?
But is this team a good Cinderella story? Because now we need to get into something that you have been avoiding pretty much the last half of the Alabama basketball season, and I have been avoiding bringing it up because I know you normally don't like to talk about it.
Well, look, I know what you're getting at. I said that I think you shouldn't rush to judgment on a coach until they've had 4 seasons. And so I get it. There's plenty of times to criticize Avery Johnson and this team throughout the season because there's certainly bad losses and dumb losses that have happened with this team. But now we're at the end of the season. And so like I said, I said I'm going to reserve judgment until the end of the season. And we're at the end of the season. Okay. And look, the numbers are simply this. Avery Johnson has been 8-10 in conference play in 3 of his 4 seasons. He's had a losing record in 3 of his 4 seasons in conference play.
Not good.
That doesn't cut it.
No.
That doesn't cut it, especially when you're a coach that when you came in, when you were hired, was painting pictures of one and dones. I get it, Colin Sexton was one and done, but he's the only one and done. There's not a one and done on this team. And so there was pictures of Final Fours that were being painted by Avery Johnson. There was also pictures of a team that would be fast and running the floor and firing shots in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. Avery said we're not going to practice with a college shot clock. We're going to practice with a pro shot clock because I want guys firing off shots faster.
Not happening.
Sometimes this team fires off shots early, but they're not good. They're not good shot selections. This hasn't been a team that's been fast and running the floor and scoring in transition. Not this season, and for the most part, not too much in any of the other 3 seasons. So we're 4 seasons in, and we still haven't seen the team that was initially advertised. There have certainly been high points. There have been great wins to celebrate. You saw Alabama make it back to the tournament. You saw Alabama make it to the second round of the tournament, to the field of 32 for the first time in 12 years. So there are things to celebrate, but it's not enough things to celebrate.
I want to say, and I know you hate when I do this, but I'm going to make a football comparison.
Here we go.
When I say the name Mike Shula, what do you think of? Horrible head coach. Maybe got Alabama through some dark times. There was one shining moment of a good season under Mike Shula, but when history books are written, they're going to paint Mike Shula as the coach that he was. The lasting impression that we all have of Mike Shula is that dumbfounded look on his face at the Iron Bowl when he really had no idea what to do. And I think that's what we're now seeing with Avery Johnson. He's a good coach, a decent coach that got Alabama through some times. But like Adam has said in many, many times on this podcast, he's not the guy to get us to that next level. Mike Shula was a great recruiter. Avery Johnson's a great recruiter. Alabama's in for a 5-star that probably we wouldn't have been in if we still had Anthony Grant. But Avery Johnson is not the guy to get the University of Alabama to the next level. Now, what I'm worried about is our former athletic director, Bill Battle, somehow gave Avery Johnson an $8 million buyout. This is a coach that had never coached in college basketball. How in the world do you give an unproven coach an $8 million buyout? Somebody better give their agent a raise.
Bill Battle has done a tremendous amount for the University of Alabama. He's an Alabama guy as much as just about anybody could be. And he's done a lot to make a lot of money for the university. But at the point in his career when he came in to be athletic director, he was coming in to be a football guy. He wasn't really there to make basketball decisions. And quite honestly, I think everybody knew, even someone like me who wanted to defend Anthony Grant, like I've defended Avery Johnson, I wanted to defend Anthony Grant, but it was obvious after 5 years there wasn't a reason to continue with Anthony Grant. And what happened? Anthony Grant got a 6th year. You didn't need that 6th year to learn anything else. But Bill Battle was a guy that was trying to avoid the decision, avoid having to make any decisions about basketball. And we're in a different scenario. It's a different world now with Greg Byrne as the athletic director. Battle and even Malmore before him were athletic directors that were football guys. They were Bears boys, and they would show up to basketball games only on occasion, and they'd sit in the athletic director's like roped off box up high above the crowd, and then they'd leave before the game was over and not interact with the fans. Greg Byrne comes in. He's a basketball guy. He's been at Arizona. He's seen good basketball. Greg Byrne wants to interact with the fans, and Greg Byrne usually sits near the floor seats. He's usually somewhere close to the floor. He's someone that seems like an athletic director that's invested in basketball. He's got a plan to improve the arena and do major renovations to the arena, where Malmore only did very basic cosmetic things. So you've got an athletic director now that cares about basketball, but he is hamstrung because the two athletic directors before him didn't care about basketball.
So let me ask you this.
Look, Bill Battle signed, like, people want to make fun of Auburn for the mess they're in with Gus Malzahn and his contract. Bill Battle did the exact same thing with Avery Johnson.
Yeah. Avery Johnson's the 19th highest paid head coach in college basketball right now.
You want your football metaphor to explain Avery Johnson? It's not Mike Shula, it's Gus Malzahn.
Yeah.
You've got this guy that's done well. He's made the team be successful at times, but he continues to not satisfy, and the fan base isn't confident, but they can't make any kind of moves related to him because his contract is so good he can't go anywhere. Avery Johnson, based on his results, based on his track record, 8-10 in 3 seasons, is the 3 of the 4 seasons he's been the head coach. That should be, if you can't have a winning record in conference, that should be enough to fire a coach. But I right now, it's hard for me to imagine Avery Johnson not being back next season, just because the contract is there to keep him there.
But Alabama Athletics has enough for this $8 million buyout. I mean,
yeah, Alabama's not broke.
Right. So if anybody can do it, it is Alabama. But does Alabama basketball have enough for an $8 million buyout? That's the question.
Alabama actually, part of why Alabama has such good contracts for their coaches, even Anthony Grant was getting paid well. Mark Gottfried was getting paid very well. The reason why these coaches have had good contracts is because Alabama as an athletic program is very profitable, but also Alabama basketball is profitable, and it's not always the case that basketball is profitable. Football is a guaranteed moneymaker. College basketball is not a guaranteed moneymaker, but Alabama, even in down years that weren't good, Alabama was able to turn a profit where other schools weren't. Some of that's because the athletic department is generally well run in the broad scope, and part of that is the Bama brand is good, and people do show up and people do care. There's a lot of times where we talk about a 15,000 seat arena looking empty, but if you have, the ticket sales, we're back to ticket sales, Dave. When you have the ticket sales of 9,000, 10,000 fans on a regular basis, that is significant revenue coming in that can help make basketball viable. And basketball has been financially viable for a good time in Tuscaloosa.
It has been financially viable, but doing an $8 million buyout, that will probably bankrupt the system.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, maybe not bankrupt it.
I don't have the exact numbers, but $8 million is not a buyout you want to pay. It's a large buyout, and that's why the buyout's there, because they want to discourage the buyout happening. That's the beauty of the contract. But Alabama's in a situation now where Greg Byrne has got to do a lot of searching, a lot of soul searching about where he wants basketball to be. The biggest thing holding Alabama basketball back right now is not Avery Johnson. It's Bill Battle. Unfortunately. Because Bill Battle took too long to get rid of Anthony Grant. He took too long to get rid of Anthony Grant. He then proceeded to botch the hiring process. He blew everything up in hiring Greg Marshall. Not that I think Greg Marshall would be any better off than Avery Johnson is, and then was so late in the process in hiring that Avery Johnson was the best option on the table. And I like Avery Johnson. I like him a lot. I think he's a great guy. I think he's been a heck of a promoter. That's one of the best things he's had over Anthony Graham. But you got to deliver, and you got to translate dollars into wins, and there just haven't been enough wins.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that could help Alabama in this $8 million buyout is if Johnson does go to the NBA. Well, Johnson was actually on Paul Feinbaum's show this afternoon and asked him about going back to the NBA. Unfortunately, Avery had this to say. He said, "You know me from my career, Paul. I've played 16 years in the NBA, and I've coached in the NBA, and now I've coached in college. I've never been known to be a quitter. I've always been known to be a fighter, and I'm still fighting. If you ever wonder about it, just stop by my office at 5 in the morning or at 10 at night and watch me throughout the games when I'm up on the sidelines coaching. Or if you've ever had an opportunity to see me in practice, it looks like I'm a guy that's fully committed." Well, dang it. It looks like Alabama's going to have to fire him.
What time did Avery say that?
This afternoon on the Feinbaum show.
And what time does Alabama play tomorrow?
6 o'clock.
So we're talking about 28 hours, less than 28 hours before his team's got to take the court. What else was he supposed to say?
That's a good point.
There's rumors out there that he's looking at the Pelicans or working on something with the Pelicans, and then there, you've heard every rumor under the sun. There's rumors that Avery's coming. He's going to stay at Alabama and be back next year. There's rumors that he won't be back because he's going to find other opportunities, and there's rumors that he's going to be fired. Nobody knows. I really think Greg Byrne is keeping things close to the vest. The way Greg Byrne was hired was played close to the vest. The way Greg Byrne has made transitions at Alabama, bringing in Brad Bohannon to take over the baseball program, firing his predecessor after 1 year. Greg Byrne likes to be stealthy. So we don't really know what Greg Byrne's up to, and I only think there's a couple of people that do know what Greg Byrne's final decision is. And I think that may also be very dependent on what happens in this Ole Miss game.
Yep, I agree. So
it is Cecil Hurt. We've cited some of his recent basketball columns. He's said, it'd be a lot less frustrating if there was clarity one way or the other, where this team wasn't, a permanent bubble team where you could say, oh, well, clearly the coach has to be fired, or regardless of what the buyout is. But this is a team that's been good. They just haven't been great. And this is a 4-year tenure for Avery Johnson that's been good and hasn't been great. And
I wouldn't even say it's good.
It's not. Well, there's been bright spots. It's been good in the sense that all 4 years that Avery Johnson has been here, Alabama has been in the bubble conversation. They've only made the tournament once, but they've been on the bubble in all 4 years, which was not true for Anthony Grant's teams, and it wasn't true the last 2 or 3 years of Mark Gottfried. So at least the program is somewhat better in that sense that they're in the conversation. The problem is they can't get over the hump. They've consistently been on the wrong side of the bubble, and they're one layup away from never being on the right side of the bubble.
Yeah.
And that's where the rubber meets the road with this basketball program. And Alabama has proven they can win championships in just about everything else, except for basketball. That's the last piece of the puzzle of proving that Alabama is an elite athletic program across the board. And if that's what the goal is, being elite, Alabama probably needs to make a change. I just don't think it is going to be. It's going to be very difficult to make that change right now, based on the way things are set up by the previous generation.
Yeah. So I know you don't like getting into speculations, but I have to ask.
It's the end of the season. It's perfect. It's perfect time to speculate.
If Alabama fires, why did I say Grant? Avery Johnson tomorrow after losing to Ole Miss by 30 points. Let's just say that happens.
Okay, Ole Miss may win that game. They will not beat Alabama by 30 points. I'll put a stake on that, Dave.
I know you will, and I won't take that bet. But let's just say Alabama loses by 15 points, and we're never really in the game. Something has to happen. Johnson probably would be fired after that. Let's say the top 3 guys, who would you say Alabama goes after?
The top 3 guys Bama goes after.
In your head, this is just your opinion, of course.
Sure. I think you will see people clamoring for Steve Prohm because he has ties to Alabama. I think his star has kind of faded in the last few weeks because Iowa State has tapered off, fallen out of the top 25. I think that's a name worth considering. I think you're going to see names, Dave. You've advocated for Fred Hoiberg. I think you could see something like that. I think you could see a big name like Steve Alford. I think a hot name that everybody's going to be gunning for is going to be Eric Musselman, the Nevada coach. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are thinking that. I think Sean Miller could be on the table. It seems like he's leaving Arizona. I get it. The subpoena's out there. If in some near future there was some sort of assurance that Sean Miller could coach next year and not be heavily sanctioned, I think you could see Greg Byrne and Sean Miller reunite. I think that's a long shot, but I think that's a possibility. I think there are some other coaches that have proven themselves in recent days, in recent weeks, that you're going to hear a lot of people talking about that are more of the up-and-coming type. So I think somebody you could think about is VCU's Mike Rhodes. He's been the Atlantic 10 Coach of the Year, and I think it seems like everybody always wants to hire from VCU. That's where Anthony Grant came from. That's where Shaka Smart came from. You can debate how well Anthony Grant worked out and Shaka Smart has worked out at Texas. You can also argue that it wasn't so great for LSU hiring the VCU coach named Will Wade. But I think you're going to see Mike Rhodes' name mentioned out there as one of the top coaches to look at. I think you're also going to see there's so much hype right now for Wofford and how they've done. So I think you're going to see a lot of people talking about their coach, Mike Young. And these are names that I think Alabama could be in the conversation for if there was an opening. And I think you're going to see a lot of schools clamoring for these type names. And then I think if you're looking for somebody that's successful, that's at a Power 5 school, that's doing well, but also could be looking to move to make more money, to move into a situation where there'd be a stronger athletic department, I think Chris Beard at Texas Tech is a name you've got to think about. He has a great defensive mind. A lot of his ties are to the state of Texas, but I think if you could lure him away, I think his name could be in the conversation for several big schools, and I think that's a real possibility to look at him. I think that could be good. Right now, he's making less than $3 million compared to Avery Johnson, who's making over $3 million.
Over $3 million.
So I think there's a chance to make some of those kind of moves, to take coaches that are in good situations and convince them that they will have a lot more resources based on the brand and money of the Alabama athletic department. I think Greg Byrne can make that kind of sell if he wants to do it this year. He may look at it. He may look at $8 million and say it would be better to make that move a year from now and see. Alabama has good recruits coming in. There are good, talented players. And sometimes with a basketball team, 1 year can make the difference where players that are there get a different mindset and new players come in and infuse life and energy into a program. You can certainly have freshmen make an impact, especially in a way that you wouldn't see happen on the football field. So I could very easily see Greg Byrne sticking with the hand he's been dealt and playing it for one more round. I don't know that that's the best course of action, but I do think it is a potentially viable course of action because that's a lot better than playing against an $8 million buyout.
Let me pose a name that you might not have thought about, but I'm sure you've heard of. And you actually got to see a little bit of his team play earlier this year. University of Alabama Huntsville has a guy, Lenny Acuff. He is 530 and 317 in 28 seasons. He is 413 and 206 at UAH. Let's say Alabama strikes out at all these big names. Do you see somebody like Lenny Acuff getting a chance at somewhere like Alabama? And maybe that's just me and my Huntsville homerism.
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. Well, okay, fine.
How do you spell Lenny?
Lennie.
That's what I thought. Here's what I'm going to tell you, Dave. I knew you had the stats in front of you. I didn't have any stats on Lenny Acuff in front of me, and so I immediately went to try to pull up some stats on Lenny Acuff. And one of the ways I would do that is I would go and type it into Wikipedia.
And he's not there.
He's not there. It pulls up the Alabama Huntsville basketball page. It pulls up the Chargers athletics page. But Lenny Acuff's a good basketball coach, but he doesn't have the clout necessary to be able to jump into the SEC with the way the SEC is right now.
Right.
You can be a good X's and O's guy, but you've also got to pull the talent in. And I get it. There's a lot of people in Huntsville that know and love Lenny Acuff. You're not the first one to float that idea, but you got to pass the Wikipedia test to be in the conversation. And right now, Lenny Acuff's not there. Dave, you should go, after we finish recording, you should go set up a Wikipedia page for Lenny Acuff. I think that you can be that campaign manager. I think that'd be. But no, I think there. Yeah, you're going to hear people. I think especially if you listen to our podcast, and then when the podcast is over, you go listen to some sports radio. I think you're going to hear people float Lenny Acuff's name. I think that's going to be. But no, that's not viable. Okay.
Well, another issue in basketball we have. Go ahead. What?
He's a great coach, though. He's a great coach.
I understand. You're not getting on to him. But another issue that we have to talk about, you mentioned it earlier just a minute ago when you talked about Sean Miller. We have to talk about the situation that has affected the SEC tournament now with Will Wade being suspended. Ben, you know a lot more about this than I do. And I admit that I don't know much about this, just that Will Wade is a cheater and that now Aunt Becky from Full House is a cheater. So what's going on?
Well, it's plain and simple. Will Wade, we already knew was going to be subpoenaed as part of the FBI's investigation into paying recruits. The entire Christian Dawkins situation that's going on. While that was coming down the pipe, Alabama and LSU, everyone in the SEC knew Will Wade was kind of in a not great situation. But they also thought Will Wade was going to finish the season until the great guys Thamel and Forty at Yahoo Sports started reporting that they've got audio of Will Wade talking about paying recruits, and not just any recruit, Devontae Smart, who's been a critical part of their team this year.
Yeah, that's not very good. You can't want that to happen.
And it's not just him talking about paying a player. It's like profanity laden.
Oh gosh. First off, he wears shirts that are too small.
Shirts that are too big.
Oh,
shirts
they
that
look
are way
too small.
big. They're way too big. You could have a big tent revival in one of Will Wade's shirts. What needs to happen on the shirts? What needs to happen is Will Wade and Bruce Pearl need to get together and they need to trade some shirts. Because Bruce's shirts are too small and Will Wade's shirts are too large.
I could see that. That could be a good thing to happen.
They need to swap shirts. But Will Wade's in a world of trouble, and it is hard to imagine any scenario where Will Wade comes back and coaches LSU.
There's rumor he might be back coaching the LSU in 2 days.
No, I just don't. I will be completely shocked.
Okay.
I just don't believe it. I think Will Wade's done, and I think LSU would be crazy to try to bring him back.
I agree with that. So
not just that, Will Wade's not even cooperating with LSU's internal investigations. He's lawyered up. He's not answering questions. You can't bring a coach back in that scenario.
No, you can't at all. I think that so as it stands right now, let's just Will Wade's gone. So what is this? Everybody's paying players. Is that what this thing is in the FBI? And now stars, Hollywood stars are trying to get their kids going to UCF or UCLA or USC or wherever this is.
There are definitely some Hollywood celebrities, not necessarily of the A-list level, that are out there.
You shut your mouth. Aunt Becky's an A-lister.
If that's what you need, Dave, that's okay. that have tried to. I think William H. Macy might be an A-lister. Maybe he's like a low A. He's like a low A. That the situation is a separate FBI investigation where you've got these folks that are Hollywood celebrities and the like that are paying to influence schools to let their kids in. They may have tricked their way onto some athletic teams, and so, all of that kind of stuff. But it's involved several different schools. It's obviously the elite schools like Yale and Harvard, but also schools like USC that have good film schools, because obviously that's where that's where you want to go if you're a movie star. So, but now the FBI investigation that involves Aunt Becky from Full House,
Lori Loughlin,
Aunt Becky, who everybody knows, that investigation has some ties to basketball, but it's completely separate from the investigation that's bringing down guys like Rick Pitino and Sean Miller and Will Wade. Those are two completely separate investigations that the federal government's conducting. There is one common thread, though. One common thread. Do you know what that is, Dave?
You said something about Auburn earlier, but I for the life of me have not figured it out.
It is exactly that. Auburn basketball. Auburn basketball, of course, we knew last year Chuck Person was forced out of his job at Auburn because of his ties to Christian Dawkins and everything in the Adidas scandal that the FBI was looking into. He was replaced by a coach named Ira Bowman. Ira Bowman was formerly a coach at Penn, and he is now involved in the new FBI investigation because he was helping smuggle kids onto the basketball team at Penn, because Penn's an Ivy League school.
Wow. So Bruce Pearl knows how to hire great assistants, is what I'm hearing.
So it's two different sides of the coin. Chuck Person was paying to bring in recruits, and Ira Bowman was getting paid by recruits. So now Auburn has all their bases covered.
Wow. All right. So Auburn is obviously down an assistant going into their game on Thursday, correct?
Yes, Ira Bowman has been suspended by Auburn. So yeah, they replaced their coach that was suspended and ultimately fired by another coach that has now been suspended a year later.
Like I said, Bruce Pearl knows how to hire them. So, all right. So this brings me back to all of this topic we were talking about a couple of minutes ago with Avery Johnson. Will Wade's out of a job. We know that. Hypothetically, Avery Johnson will be out of a job. What other teams?
I'm still not sure of that.
I said,
okay.
I said hypothetically. Will Vanderbilt fire Bryce Drew?
I don't think so. I think he's got a certain amount of leeway. You never know. Losing every game in the SEC is pretty bad, and Vandy wants to be good at basketball. They're never going to be good at football. So they put a lot of eggs in that basketball basket.
I see what you did there.
But I think they're going to give Drew another year. I haven't, no, but again, nothing surprises me when it comes to basketball coaches.
Yeah, Texas A&M's already announced they're not going to rehire their basketball coach. So that
they are on the verge. They're on the verge of firing Billy Kennedy.
Yes.
So Texas A&M, we're recording while Texas A&M and Vandy are playing. The two coaches in question we just brought up, and A&M looks like they're going to win this game. So they're not going to fire Billy Kennedy until he loses in the SEC tournament.
Yeah, but they've already made the announcement that he's gone.
The university hasn't made the announcement. The Houston Chronicle has reported it. So that's what they're going to make the announcement once he loses out of the SEC tournament, because A&M's not making the NCAA tournament unless they can win the SEC tournament, and that's not happening.
No. So I see right now hypothetically, three teams in the SEC looking for coaches. Will Missouri fire theirs for being so bad?
I think Quanzo Martin's gonna have another year as well.
Okay.
You never know. You never know. Things can change. Well, the athletic directors love to sit down with their coaches at the end of the season. And sometimes you can go into those meetings having an idea that a guy's going to be around, and then you have a conversation and it doesn't instill a lot of confidence, and an athletic director decides to pull the trigger. And so you never know. But I think we're looking at 2 or 3 vacancies, possibly 4 in the SEC.
So of those 2 to 4 teams in the SEC looking for a job, what is the most attractive to a big name, high profile head coach?
Well, right now I think the LSU job is very attractive if the players that are there are going to be eligible next year.
Good point.
And Devontae Smart may not be, but most of those other guys should. I think there's some speculation about what Tremont Waters could do. I think Waters will be back. I don't think he's going to be drafted where it makes sense for him to go sign with an agent. I could be wrong, but I think there's a lot of people that would like to be in Baton Rouge, because that's a rabid fan base. They've been passionate. The fans have been trying to defend Will Wade. I think LSU's they're literally coming off of a conference championship, so I think that's where you'd want to go. You'd want to go there. LSU's got new renovations done to the Maravich Assembly Center. A&M has got a pretty good arena. I think they have both got Alabama beat in facilities right now.
Yeah, I agree. So really, I'd say Alabama might be third on this list of somebody to be attractive.
Well, if you're just grading on facilities, if you're grading on where the team is, now if you want to grade on things like what kind of control you're going to have, what kind of boss you're going to have. Now, Dave, in all honesty, would you rather? I get it, you're a Bama fan, so you have a Bama bias, but I think if you ask this question to most people, they'd come down on the right side of this. Would you rather have Greg Byrne as a boss, or would you rather have Joe Oliva as a boss?
Yeah, I'd probably say Joe Oliva.
So LSU may wait. What?
No, I'm kidding.
So LSU may beat Bama in facilities and current status of the
Greg
program.
Byrne is an easy guy to work
Greg Byrne would probably be the more desirable athletic director.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Now look, Billy Kennedy is only making $2.5 million. Alabama's paying Avery Johnson over $3 million.
Right, but would Greg Byrne make the same mistake that Bill Battle has?
Well, it's not a mistake to pay a coach $3 million if he's worth $3 million. And look, $3 million with an $8 million buyout is very different than $3 million with a lesser buyout.
True.
At Oklahoma, Lon Kruger is making $3 million. He's making $3.2 million, but his buyout is less than $4 million. He's got a much smaller buyout.
So he actually has
and by the way, shout out to USA Today. They published their men's basketball salaries today, so that's why we've got all these numbers so close at hand. Let's look at Tennessee. Tennessee's got Rick Barnes. Rick Barnes is making $3,250,000. He's making more than Avery Johnson, but his buyout's only $5 million. So you don't have to give the next coach at Alabama, if there's going to be a next coach, you don't have to give them the same contract you gave Avery Johnson. You don't buy out an $8 million coach only to give another coach an $8 million buyout. You don't do that.
I hope that Greg Byrne has a better head on his shoulders than Bill Battle, and actually does a really good contract for this next head coach.
Look, Greg Burns. If Greg Byrne has to hire a basketball coach, if he does, he's going to have a good contract. Here's one for you, Dave. The 10th highest paid coach in the country, John Beilein at Michigan, is making $3.8 million. His buyout is only $3 million. Now I get it. I get it. Beilein and Barnes and Kruger are older than Avery Johnson. The older you are, that's going to affect your buyout to an extent.
Right.
But Tom Izzo, older guy, he's also had some issues at Michigan State. But Tom Izzo's buyout's only $5 million. Izzo's making over $4 million in total compensation, but his buyout is $5.3 million.
What's Roy Williams' buyout? Roy Williams or Coach K or something like that. I mean,
Roy Williams' buyout is $8.8 million.
Okay, he deserves that.
Krzyzewski doesn't have a buyout listed, which I think means he's untouchable. And same with Jay Wright at Villanova, as they should be.
Right.
You win multiple national championships, you shouldn't be able to be bought out.
What about Bill Self? Can we make a run at Bill Self?
I don't know. I don't know that that's what you want. I don't think that's what you want.
Really?
Well, look, Bill Self's been tied to all this Adidas stuff too. I'm just, I mean, I get it. I've made an argument for Sean Miller, but I just don't know. I personally have never been a big Bill Self fan anyway. But okay. There could be a scenario where Kansas is ready to move on because of like the stench of the Adidas scandal that Bill Self's brought. But Bill Self has a $16 million buyout. $16 million.
We won't make a run at Bill Self.
That's not something you play with. That's not really in the realm of possibility.
Nope, not at all.
But anyway, just avoid $8 million buyouts. That's the moral of the story.
I agree with that. Something that is in the realm of possibility is us picking the SEC bracket.
Ah, yes, indeed. We need to do some picking. So, with that said, let's also throw out some alliance picks.
Sure, why not?
So we've picked most of those games. So we've got Week 6 coming up. We've got, first off, on Saturday, Memphis at Salt Lake.
I'm going to go Salt Lake. Salt Lake had a last-second comeback to win their game last week. Memphis is still Memphis. I got Salt Lake winning.
Yeah, that's the home field advantage versus a lackluster team. I'm going to go with Salt Lake. Arizona at Orlando.
We've said it before. Orlando's the class of this league. Orlando wins hands down.
I'm picking Orlando until they lose one. San Antonio at Atlanta.
Atlanta showed me something last week, but I'm still going to pick San Antonio to win this game. It's going to be close, but I got San Antonio.
I'm picking San Antonio on the road. And Birmingham at San Diego. West Coast game for the Iron.
Yeah, I'm picking San Diego. Birmingham did not show me anything last week. I'm going to go San Diego in this.
You know, San Diego's got the same record as Birmingham. I think that Alabama. I keep wanting to call them Alabama, which I just can't do. The Iron, I think, could be a real stumbling block for San Diego because the Iron have had the fewest points allowed in the league, but San Diego also has a very good defense. And I think when you put things on the West Coast, San Diego is going to have a little bit of an advantage. I'm going to pick the Fleet to win at home.
There you go. There's our AAF picks.
Okay, so the Wednesday games we're throwing out because we're recording right now, and they're both final. Mizzou beat Georgia, and A&M beat Vanderbilt. So Vandy finishes SEC play 0-19.
And you say Bryce Drew gets another year.
I think he could. Because some of the factors to this Vandy team were that they had players get injured, and some of those things are just beyond his control. Also, I don't know that Vandy's ready to make a coaching change after losing Stallings. I think they're going to give Drew the benefit of the doubt and give him another year.
All right.
So anyway, starting with the Thursday games, we will go from there. The noon tip-off for Thursday is number 9 Arkansas at number 8 Florida. Of course, it's all in Nashville, so I say at, just saying the higher seed being the home team.
I got Florida winning this one. Even though Arkansas showed me something against Alabama, I got Florida winning it because they have more to prove.
Florida definitely needs a win. They are on the right side of the bubble, but not by a whole lot. I think Florida does need a win here, but for some reason I just feel like Arkansas has got a little fire in their belly all of a sudden. I'm going to take the Razorbacks.
All right.
Mizzou taking on Auburn.
Did anybody
number
get
12 Mizzou versus number 5 Auburn?
Did anybody get a better draw in this tournament than Auburn? Because I think Auburn has the best path to at least the semis. I've got Auburn winning this one big.
I agree with you on all fronts there, Dave. I will pick Auburn as well. Number 10, Alabama. At number 7, Ole Miss, the first of the night games.
You're not going to like this, Ben. I've got Ole Miss winning 75-63.
I am going to take Alabama winning by a score of 75-72.
All right.
Then we've got A&M fresh off their win over Vandy, the 11th team A&M versus number 6 Mississippi State. Will this be Billy Kennedy's last game with A&M?
Yes, it will. I got Mississippi State winning this, and I picked chalk all the way through so far.
Yes, I'm going to go with Mississippi State there as well. Okay, getting to the Friday quarterfinals. For Game 7, the noon tip-off on Friday, I've got Arkansas playing LSU. Dave, you've got Florida playing LSU. LSU, of course, with assistant coach Tony Benford as filling in as the head coach in Will Wade's absence. Unless somehow magically Will Wade reappears, I don't think that'll be the case. What's going to happen in your matchup between Florida and LSU?
Even though Will Wade is not on the sideline, the players are all still there. This was a great game last Thursday. Was it Thursday or Tuesday? It was Wednesday, actually. This was a great game last Wednesday, Florida against LSU. When Florida absolutely have to have the win, LSU ended up winning it. I'm going to go with LSU winning again.
I've got LSU versus Arkansas, but I'm still going to take LSU. I do agree with you. LSU is going to be fired up for whoever they're playing.
Yep.
Next up, I think we both have Auburn taking on South Carolina in a 5-4 matchup.
Now, South Carolina is on the bubble. Auburn is also, I think Auburn is already in, even though South Carolina is
Auburn, yeah, Auburn's got a cushion. They're in good shape.
Yeah, I think Auburn's already in. Knowing that, South Carolina is going to come out playing hard. I think Auburn wins, but it will not be by a big margin.
South Carolina is going to need Auburn to be very cold, and I don't know that that's the case. This seems like the kind of game that Bruce Pearl would get Auburn up for. I think, quite frankly, he's going to be arguing to the Auburn players, look, you guys should have been in this double bye, and you didn't get there. South Carolina's sitting in your spot. Go attack them. I think Auburn's going to have what they need, and they're going to be firing off some good shots. I think Auburn is going to top South Carolina.
All right.
Then you've got Ole Miss versus Kentucky. I've got Bama versus Kentucky. What have you got, Dave?
I mean, Kentucky's going to win this. This is Big Blue Nation in Nashville, Big Blue Nation South. Kentucky wins in a rout.
I'm going to pick Kentucky as well. I've got them playing against Bama, so I got to throw a score out there. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I think Kentucky's going to win that game 82-65. I think Alabama's going to have trouble scoring. I think Kentucky's going to be okay scoring. Next up, we've got Mississippi State taking on Tennessee. Two clear tournament teams. Tennessee is trying to play for the best seed they can possibly get. What's going to happen in this matchup?
I hate to pick chalk again. I mean, I've not picked an upset for this, but I've got to pick Tennessee. I don't see any way Tennessee loses to Mississippi State.
It's hard to not like a team with a double bye. They earned it because they're playing well, but also they're well rested. So moving on to the semifinals, we've got two games that will be taking place on Saturday. So Dave, I think I've got LSU and Auburn. You've got LSU and South Carolina. Is that right?
No. We both got LSU.
You did go with Auburn. Okay.
I did go with Auburn. I think you're going to see the same thing. LSU is coming out to prove something. We could see a possibility where the SEC could get two number one seeds, and it could be LSU and whoever comes out of this Tennessee-Kentucky game.
I think, the LSU is going to be running on a lot of emotion in their first game on Friday. If they're playing on Saturday, I think that's there's a chance to actually ease up a little bit. And I also think that's where the heat of the moment, you realize you don't have your head coach there. So in a closer game, I think this could be really challenging for LSU. I'm going to pick Auburn to come out on top over LSU on Saturday.
Wow. All right.
All right, next up, I think we both have Kentucky and Tennessee. Who do you like in this?
This is the rubber match. Tennessee won at Rupp. Kentucky won at Knoxville. This is technically this could be the most neutral court you see because there's going to be a lot of Tennessee fans over there in Nashville as well with Big Blue Nation. I think on a neutral court, Kentucky is the better team. I'm going to say Kentucky wins this.
The knock on Rick Barnes is that he can coach really great teams, and then those teams kind of falter in tournament play and underachieve in tournaments. And that's the book on Rick Barnes, and Rick Barnes isn't a new coach. I think I'm going to go with Kentucky here.
All right.
So that sets up our finals matchup. The championship game, Sunday.
You've got Auburn and Kentucky.
I've got Auburn and Kentucky, and you've got
LSU and Kentucky.
What do you think is going to happen?
I've got Kentucky. This is when the rubber meets the road. We find out that Kentucky is Kentucky, and lo and behold, guess who wins the SEC? Always happens, Kentucky. But LSU puts up enough of a fight to where I think LSU gets the second number one seed overall, and Tennessee is the number 2 seed in the Big Dance.
For my picks, I've got Auburn taking on Kentucky. I just think that once Kentucky kind of gets zeroed in on what they've got to do, they're just hard to beat. I don't know that Auburn's going to hang with them, especially that being their 4th game in 4 days. At that point, fatigue does set in, and I think the advantage goes to Kentucky. They're longer, they're bigger, they're more athletic, and they'll be better rested. So I'm going to pick the Cats over the Tigers.
There you go. You got any suggest SEC only get one number 1 seed in your book?
Yeah, I just think there's not enough oxygen for 2 number 1 seeds. The fact that Kentucky and Tennessee are on the same side of the SEC tournament bracket means I think it's Kentucky's spot to lose. I think Tennessee could get a 1 seed if they can win it all. But that's where things are at. I think a much more realistic scenario actually involves Kentucky and Tennessee both winding up as 2 seeds.
Okay.
So the ACC is too strong between Virginia, Duke, and Carolina. All three of them can make a case for a 1 seed. I think despite their loss, no one's going to hold that against Gonzaga. Gonzaga gets so much credit for being the only team to beat Duke at full strength that you gotta think Gonzaga's still hanging on to a 1 spot. So there's limited space for the SEC at that number 1 level.
All right, well there you go. Those are our picks, and now it is time for Ben's sideline warning.
I've brought some negative views, which I like to be a positive guy. I like to be optimistic, but sometimes you also have to say some things that come across as negative, just because you have to be realistic. And so there's a tough balancing act between being negative versus being realistic versus being positive, and you don't want to be so positive that you get out of touch with reality. So that's a tough balancing act. But I want to bring up a tweet from Tina Deneen. This is Coach Lou's, the strength and conditioning coach for Alabama basketball. It's his wife. She's on Twitter. A lot of Bama basketball fans engage with her on Twitter. I'm not going to read out her name. You can track her down if you want to follow her. She tweets some really good stuff, sometimes some really funny stuff. But she tweeted out on March 11th. Prayers for all the families who have to endure calls for their coaching, dads, husbands, moms, wives to be fired. It's more than a game to some. Be strong and be blessed. And Bama fans, it's okay to be frustrated with Avery Johnson. It's okay to be frustrated with the coaching staff. But keep in mind, there are a lot of people out there that are affected by these decisions. And you say, well, there's 3 million reasons and then another 8 million reasons why we shouldn't worry about people being affected. Well, there's a lot more to this than money. You have to pack up and move. You lose friendships in firing situations. So just remember, it's okay as a fan to want more from a coach or want better for a coach or even want to change at a coach. But try to keep it classy, Bama fans, especially if you're out there on social media. And I don't think Tina Deneen's tweet was in regard to any one specific thing. I think it's more based on her experience seeing what people have posted and said before. So be nice to folks, be thoughtful, and try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're out there, regardless of whatever opinions you want to share. Keep them focused on the coach and keep them from being personal. There's a lot more going on than just what happens on the court.
Well said. I think that sometimes we as fans put coaches in the bubble as a robot and have no feelings and fire the man. He has, blah, blah, blah. We really put the team ahead of personal people. If you're going to say something on Twitter or on Facebook, however you do it, don't direct it at the coach, because there are people out there people can get their feelings hurt. And people, the old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, words can never hurt me. Words hurt. And you've got to really watch what you say. And this social media, this is a whole nother topic we can get into, but this social media era is not doing itself any favors.
Also, you, dear tweeter, whoever you are listening to us right now, you're not as clever as you think you are. So I know you think you've got that tweet lined up that's all really clever and really biting. It's not that funny. It's not that funny. Go ahead and delete it and go say what you want to say, but rethink it, because it's not that funny. You're not as funny as you think you are.
Can think of a couple that are Hunter Johnson and Luke Ratliff.
Right, leave it to those guys. They're They're consistently funny. Most everybody else on Twitter not as funny as they think they are. Again, that's like back to our original conversation. That's like demanding that Trent Richardson be Emmitt Smith. Some of you tweeters out there, some of you people on Twitter need to recognize that Luke Ratliff and Hunter Johnson and those guys are the Emmitt Smiths of what they're doing, and some of y'all need to realize that you're more like Alliance of American Football level social media experts, and you're not as funny as you think you are.
I can get behind that. I agree with that.
There's my football metaphor, Dave.
There you go. I'm proud of you, Ben. Well, for the last 3 or 4 weeks, my sideline warning has pertained to the Atlanta Braves. And guess what it's going to pertain to this week?
Here we go.
So I think it was Monday, a report came out that the starting pitcher that everybody was saying was going to be Mike Foltynewicz for the season. Well, a report from the AJC came out that Foltynewicz will not be ready for the regular season. So guess who's getting to toe the rubber for the first game of the season? Ben, do you want to say his name or do you want me to?
Could it be one Julio Teheran, a guy who's done it before?
Yeah. So if there was ever a time for Liberty Media to say, all right, Anthopoulos, you need some money, here you go. Go get somebody. It's now. But you know what? They actually interviewed the CEO of Liberty Media and asked about the Braves this week. And you know what he said? He said, oh, I think we're at a good place right now. I think we've got the pieces in place that we've got a great team that can make a run. I'm sorry, do these guys not know baseball? Because we've got a good team. Don't get me wrong. But when all these guys are going down, you've got Julio Teheran, who's been a failure. You've got Sean Newcomb, who's okay, but he can't find the plate sometimes. You've got Kevin Gossman, who I'm still on the fence about. You've got Mike Soroka, who we don't really know how good he is because he's always hurt. You've got Tuki Tuasant, who's good, but he's still young. And then you've got Mike Foltynewicz, who is probably your best starter right now, but he still doesn't – he gets in his own head. If somebody could go out and say, who's out there that we can get? Gio Gonzalez is still a free agent. Dallas Keuchel. For the love of Pete, Dallas Keuchel is sitting there. All you got to do is make a play and go get one of these guys. Gio Gonzalez could be better than any of those guys I just named right now. Ben's probably going to disagree with me, but I think Gio Gonzalez probably is better than anybody we've got in the Braves starting lineup right now.
You think so?
I think so, because Gio Gonzalez is a guy that's been there. He was in that three-headed monster for the Nationals. I think Gio Gonzalez could be a guy that can come over the Braves, and he's probably going to be a cheap sign. You probably don't have to get him for 1 year.
I will say he was pretty clutch for the Nationals in the World Series. Oh, wait,
no, he wasn't.
The Nationals did not make it to the World Series.
But the Braves haven't made a World Series. The Braves have barely made a postseason. So, Alex Anthopoulos, don't sign Craig Kimbrell. Whatever. I'm off that train. I want Craig Kimbrell. If you can somehow get Craig Kimbrell, I'll be happy. Please go get a starter. We've got a week and a half left until in spring training. Get somebody in camp, somebody to supplement the Braves' arms right now because they're falling like flies. We need somebody in Orlando now. Oh, wait a second. Wasn't somebody spotted having lunch around the Disney World ESPN Wide World Sports Complex, Ben?
Who could that be?
Oh, I don't know. Somebody was down there to play golf a couple weeks ago. Oh, that's right. Craig Kimbrell is in Orlando.
Oh, I thought you said you were over that.
I'm over that, but still, sign him. Okay, I'm done. Okay, so, guys, if you want to get a hold of the show, Adam, oh, wait, you're not here. Ben, what do they call to get a hold of the show?
I forget our number.
948-934-931-44 Blitz.
That's it.
I
never called the number, so I never remember the number.
You'll hear a quick message from Google saying that it is a Google voice number. Then you hear Adam with their voicemail. Leave us a message. We will play it on air. We will talk about it. We'll tell you how great your take is, how wrong your take is. By the way, I have to get this in there. I hadn't said it in a while. Kyle, if you call, I'll tell you have a Coke and a smile. There you go. I told you I'd get it in. But anyway, guys, if you want to get a hold of us on social media, we are on the Twitters. We are at SW The Show. I am at DAdams419. He is at The Ben Foster. Adam is at Run Tide Run. We're also on Instagram. We're also SW The Show there. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Sideline Warning. You can also join the Facebook fan group. Just search for Sideline Warning Fan Group. But guys, we say it every week, and we truly mean it. We love you. We will see you guys next week. Roll Tide, Forge On.